We are delighted that you've joined us today. Hello and welcome to IMARA Woman Magazine. We have with us, I call them the A-Team. Down here on my right, we have Kelly Seabrook. In the middle here, we have Diana Roman, and of course me. Donna's not with us today. Maybe we were too hard on her last time. I think today is her brother's 50th birthday, so happy birthday, Donna's brother. Well, y'all, we got a lot to cover today, so let's just dive in. As you all have probably been reading and seeing on the news, more mass shootings. Devastating mass shootings. Went to bed, once evening with El Paso's mass shooting and woke up the next morning and my goodness, Dayton, Ohio had a mass shooting. What is going on in this country? Why so many mass shootings? The number of mass shootings, I think we're up to 250 already in this year alone. What are we doing wrong? What can we do to fix this? Why is this hate?
Well, I definitely think we need some gun control regulation. I mean, we have instances where people can go and buy AK-47s. What is the purpose of that? I can understand hunting enthusiasts, people who want to protect themselves. Well, you have rifles and you have, 32s and 45s, but you don't need a weapon of mass destruction. And that's what we are allowed to purchase right now. There are not extensive background checks on these individuals who actually buy these weapons, and I think there's some legislation. I've heard, that some is coming down the pike, and it's very much needed. But there has to be some sort of control in this country, or I think that we're going to wake up to this, on a continual basis.
Which is pretty much where we are now.
Exactly.
250, and we're just in what, August?
And then we had 2 in 2 days.
Yeah, less than 24 hours.
And that, coupled with the rhetoric, I think, from our leadership, is also...
And that's another thing. Hate speech.
Hate speech,
Hate speech.
Right.
We seem to have a lot of that, too.
Does that bring violence, that kind of talking?
I think it does. I think it promotes violence. You can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater. You shouldn't be able to encourage people to do bodily and physical harm to other people. But we are seeing this hate speech at the top of leadership.
Exactly.
Right.
And they are saying that it prompts particularly young minds to feel that violence is an alternative that they should select.
Young confused minds. I think it just feeds on it. And you can't tell me, and I'm sorry, that our president stating that these 4 minority women should go back home had nothing to do with this man going to El Paso, which is 80% Latino, and going into Walmart and trying to kill Mexican Americans. I mean, it's just, I see the correlation. I don't see why there isn't something to be done about curtailing some of our president's hate speech.
They are talking about that. That he should bridle his tongue and stop saying the things that he says.
Yeah.
It's just, it seems that since he's been talking, all this violence has broken out. It's just getting worse and worse. It needs to come to a stop. I mean, we need to do some kind of regulations when people to go purchase guns, 3-day hold, background checks, all that.
Yeah.
What's going on? How are they getting these types of weapons?
And if you think about it, these are weapons that were purchased legally. This is how the law is in our country at this point. But if you could just kind of, since you're an attorney, back to the hate speech, some people are saying that they have a right to say whatever they want. That in America, freedom of speech is protected. What's your take on that?
Okay, well, basically the First Amendment allows us to express our feelings, and it even expresses or says that we can say hateful things. I mean, the First Amendment covers speeches we hate. There are some exceptions, like you can't make threats, you can't do that. You can't defame people, which is basically saying lies about people's character and reputation. Pornography is an exception, but only as to child pornography. So our Supreme Court and our Constitution allows us, I mean, that's what our country was based on, to be able to have religious freedom and freedom of expression and things of that nature. So hate speech is protected. I mean, people have a right to be hateful. However, you know, the way I think we handle it is on the other side in terms of trying to restrict the weaponry that these racist people can in fact buy. We can't stop what they say, but we can try to curtail what they do. And I think that's why it is so important, and I commend you, Wendy, for what you're trying to do in the state legislature in terms of trying to restrict access to violent weapons. So.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of weapons that they're using in these mass shootings don't even give people a chance. So you can't outrun them. They're so powerful that they're like sprays. And what happens is that you can kill, I think in Dayton, they killed, 9 people in less than 30 seconds. Think about that. Something that's that powerful. And wounded, 25, 26 more? So I think you're right. We have to look at these weapons as a means of, you know, how do we regulate them? How do we get them out of the hands of civilians? Because they really are weapons of war. And until we do that, have the courage to fight the NRA to do that, I'm afraid we're going to be seeing more and more mass shootings, unfortunately. Yeah, unfortunately.
That is unfortunate. But we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back in the next couple of minutes and talk about some possible solutions.
Yes, please. Thanks.
What if you could invest in the future of kids, like a stock? Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change. A whole new kind of investment called Better Futures. When you invest, it helps kids go to college. Believe in us, invest in us, watch us grow. My name is Sydney, and I'm your dividend.
Welcome back. We are so happy to have Dr. Arlene Andrews, who is with Moms Demand Action. Can you please tell us a little bit about your organization?
I'm glad to. Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America is a nationwide organization of volunteers. This is my volunteer role, being the state legislative lead for the state of South Carolina. We have a large and vibrant group in South Carolina. We were formed after the Sandy Hook massacre of the little children. And it was a group intended to bring mothers together to demand that there be preventive measures taken to stop that. We are moms and dads and men enough to be a mom, and people without children. We're a coalition of people who think it's time for just some common sense responses to this gun violence epidemic that only exists in the United States, no other place on the earth.
And why do you think that is?
It's because we have very lax gun laws and a lot of misinformation that is put out, particularly by the gun industry, those who manufacture guns, sell guns. They have a very powerful lobby.
NRA?
The NRA,
yes, right.
and their friends. And there's just a lot of misinformation because the vast majority of Americans actually agree with us on things like the need for background checks.
That is true.
The need to have extreme risk laws if you know someone's threatening, the need for effective background checks, and addressing online sales of guns through websites where you and I could exchange a gun even if we're felons and nobody would know.
Yeah.
So that's what their background check. And over 1 million guns are sold that way every year. So these are all just common sense. I mean, guns for personal safety and hunting and that sort of thing. That's not an issue. The issue is just unbridled access to weapons.
There are some people who think that there are too many guns to do anything about. And it doesn't matter the type of gun, it doesn't matter who has the gun, that it's a constitutionally protected right. How are you dealing with that as an organization?
That's two issues: the constitutional right and then the access to guns. We have several states that have initiated gun buyback programs. Australia did one. And people say we can't really afford that, but we can't really afford not to.
Sure.
The cost of the health care for gun violence victims, lifelong disability for people wounded. Some people don't realize that for everyone who dies, we see the death statistics, which are horrible. There are 2 or 3 people, sometimes more, that get shot who survive and have to live with those wounds for the rest of their lives, sometimes as chronic disabilities. So that cost, the cost of law enforcement, the cost of the criminal justice system, just cost of employment loss when people are out. So it really, that cost is much greater than buyback programs. Australia initiated one after it had a mass killing, and they haven't had a mass killing since. So it's, and that was over 2 decades ago. So it's definitely a viable option. On the issue of constitutional rights, and you probably as a lawyer can know about this as well, but all constitutional rights are, we honor the Second Amendment, but all constitutional rights are not wide open rights, and there are restrictions on them. So the Second Amendment is not just a blanket right to carry any kind of weapon you want, anywhere you want.
That's what it's become, though, in the minds of some of the folks, particularly these organizations that are insisting that we have no regulations on guns, no regulation on background checks, because they argue everything is an infringement on their Second Amendment right, which is ridiculous.
Well, in our opinion, we're about saving lives, and the right to live.
It's pretty important.
Right.
Aren't there too many guns to regulate in America?
It certainly will be a challenge because there are a lot of guns out there, but we're seeing change, and we're seeing, one of the things about our gun laws is they're very state-based. And South Carolina has some reasonable laws. There are people who are trying to repeal those laws every year. We're always up there saying, no, please don't repeal.
Open carry.
There really should be a permit. We have a permit. They're trying to create what's called open carry. But it would take time, certainly, because we have become a country where a certain group of people, it's actually not the most of us, have a lot of guns, and they seem to care an awful lot about those guns. And so, it would require a major culture change, but I do think that the mothers and all the grandmothers, people with common sense know that we should have some degree of regulation, and that's simply what we're supporting.
I know that you all, and I want to thank the moms representatives who are out in the audience, but especially you all have been very supportive of legislation that I've been introducing over the past 2 years to kind of curtail some of the gun violence in South Carolina, showing up at the State House. What is it that people can do to help?
Well, they can join Moms Demand Action by texting the word READY, R-E-A-D-Y, to 64433. And you'll get connected. Someone in South Carolina, if you're in South Carolina, will reach out to you state by state. So that's one thing you can do. And when you do that, you have all kinds of information. You can also go to the Everytown website, which has a lot of information on common sense responses to the gun violence epidemic.
Representative Raleigh, would you tell us about the legislation that you're introducing to help curb the gun violence that we're fighting?
Thank you so much for that question. I've introduced, actually this is the second legislative year that I've done this, but I've introduced a couple of bills, but the one that I think you're referencing is 3206, which is a bill to ban military-style assault weapons, to ban high-capacity magazines, and to ban bump stocks. Now, the president did issue an executive order outlawing bump stocks, but we still need to put it in as a matter of law in our state. And so this bill has been sitting in committee for some time, and it's just a matter of time before this kind of evil visits our state again. We've already had one experience with the use of a high-capacity magazine down at Mother Emanuel. And we're trying very hard to get it passed so that we can outlaw those kinds of weapons, because they're weapons of war. They are meant to kill a lot of people quickly, and that's their only purpose. Well, Arlene, Dr. Arlene Andrews, thank you so very much for coming. Thank you all for the work that you do. Thank you for being advocates for people to keep us safe. We really appreciate that. Next up, got an interesting session on HIV and Hep C. So stay with us. We will be right back.
Hey, you.
Yeah, you. Getting that college education, what are you gonna do? Graduate and take some office job? Be like everybody else? Or will you dare do something different? Like, be a teacher. You could be my teacher. You got the skills.
The smarts?
Yes, you. You could be the teacher I never forget. That'd be cool. Does that corporate job even have recess? What are you gonna make of yourself?
What are you gonna make of me? I've always wanted to go to college. That helps you evolve as a person. I just feel like that's my destiny. My name is Queen, and I am your dividend.
Welcome back. We are so happy to have with us our guest, but before I get to that, let me just give you some information. South Carolina is one of the top states in the country for HIV and Hep C, our little small state. A new organization has been formed to help combat and hopefully lessen this trend. And Vince, we are happy to have you with us. Vince Matthews is the Executive Director of the Joseph H. Neal Health Collaborative, a newly formed organization here in Columbia, South Carolina. Tell us first, before we get into the topic, tell us how and why the center was named after former Representative Joseph H. Neal.
Thank you. Well, Representative Neal had served for more than 20 years in the legislature, and when he passed away, his family wanted to somehow establish something that would continue the legacy of his work. What was interesting in their discussions, how policy affects health and how life is better healthy, how do we address the issues that cover a wide spectrum? So they came up with the Health Collaborative. What was distinctly unique about his career was when he first was elected to the legislature in the early 90s, when HIV and AIDS was extremely prevalent and a lot of people were dying. He was one of the lone voices that stood up. South Carolina at that time was one of the few states that did not permit anonymous testing. So he stood up against that, and every year he fought and secured funding for agencies and organizations similar to ours to get out there and do that prevention and education work. So while there is a broad vision of the collaborative to be able to address the health disparities and to achieve health equity in our state, through innovative collaborative work, our partnership with CAN Community Health is sort of our first collaborative endeavor to attack an issue that was important to him. And so, as we all know, the HIV/AIDS epidemic is far more prevalent in the South, and science has changed. And so really, we're at a point where HIV is a chronic disease that can be managed. No one should be dying of AIDS. So why is the problem so prevalent in the South? And so our partnership with CAN models the ending the epidemic model, where we actually do the community education and outreach and immediately link to care at a medical provider that can serve as their medical home. And so we're working on the prevention side, the linkage to care, keeping people in care, and then also engaged with helping people be on PrEP, which is now a new medication that's a preventative prophylactic in essence. So it's sort of like a one-shot stop that's new in the Midlands area. No one's quite has a model like this. There's one up in the upstate and in the low country. But I think we have an opportunity to make a profound impact.
Is HIV and Hep C still on the rise, or has it been capped?
It's still a problem. I think what is, I would say, most prevalent is how the disparities affecting certain communities. So, for example, HIV, African American men, even though they're 13% of the population, they make up 44% of the cases. Women are somewhat similar for African American.
44%?
Yes. And for women, African American women are 11 times as more likely than white women to impacted. So it's the disparities. So we know that there's either a problem with information and linkage to care and things, and how we're directing our energies in the right way to address the inequity that's happening.
It sounds like you've got an education and outreach issue as well, because a lot of people don't know their status. And so how are you, I know I hear that all the time, how are you as a center helping people understand to get tested?
Well, that's sort of the first big prong of the strategy is testing. So one is first sort of identifying those high-risk populations and communicating and engaging with them so they have the information to be tested on a regular basis. We provide that free testing at our site at 1911 Hampton Street. And also we go out to the community. We have a mobile outreach van. And so we create a strategy based upon the zip codes and area that needs attention to go out there and engage with the community. You know, some of it is telling us what's going on so we know how to provide the right information.
I know that you all are coming out to our event, Health Empowerment Tour on September 14th, shameless plug. And we're going to be at the Bluff Road Park Community Center, which is the heart of our community in Lower Richland. It's a high-need community, and we just really appreciate that you all will be there doing testing and education. Now, you've got a huge event coming up this week, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, it's a benefit for the organization. God's Trombones, after James Bolden Johnson's iconic 7 Negro sermons. It's a fundraiser at Lower Richland High School. At 7 p.m. on
My
August 3rd.
neck of the woods.
Absolutely. His home district. And so that benefit will fund our work to continue testing in the community and doing our community outreach.
But we'll make sure we put a graphic up to promote that event and hopefully get folks out to participate and help get the message out. Mr. Matthews, thank you so very much for coming in today. We really appreciate the effort, and you know, I have an affinity for the late Representative Joe Neal. I assumed his seat in the House, and we miss him terribly. But it's nice to see that his work is going to continue through the center.
Thank you.
Well, look, up next we've got our recipe segment, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
All in together now, we can make it better now. Come on.
Moving a little and eating better every day can help make you and your child healthier. Search We Can to find out more.
Welcome back. I love this segment of the show because this is where we get to savor healthy, tasty, and quick recipes. So, what do we have today, Phyllis?
Well, today we have some mini turkey meatloaves. And the nice thing about them is they're low in fat, they're healthy, 160 calories and 170 calories in a 3-ounce serving. And this is kind of a tip for moms who need a little extra time. You know, they've got homework and coming from work. You can make these ahead, freeze them on a cookie sheet, put them in a Ziploc bag, and you can heat them when you're ready for them. There are lots of things now that are convenient. You can get some steamed vegetables, and we have brown rice over there, a boiling bag that you boil in water for 10 minutes and it's ready. So while your turkey meatloaves are cooking, you can get the other stuff ready. You can have a full meal on the table in about 30 minutes.
Ooh,
So, and the nice thing about this recipe is it's very quick and easy, and there's a secret ingredient. There's some broccoli slaw in there. So if your children don't like to eat vegetables, you can add that and sneak it in, and they'll never know unless they see you doing it. So sneaky like that. We're going to add everything real quick, and then I'll let you sample. Hope you enjoy it. So in here we have 2 pounds of ground turkey, the lean ground turkey. You can use raw onions, or you can saute the onions with a little olive oil and garlic and add them if you don't like the strong taste of raw onions. You have some oatmeal that I've ground up to small, so it's small. And in here is the broccoli slaw, and it's ground up a lot finer so that you don't see the larger pieces in there when you're cooking it. It cooks up very soft, and as I said, you'll never know what's in there.
So it's broccoli,
And
carrots,
and cabbage, all in there. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and you really can't, if you see, we have a couple of ones that are already made and
You
sliced.
can't even see
You
it
can't
in
even see the
there.
broccoli, so you can sneak them in on your children. Okay, so we're going to add a little salt and pepper, 1/4 teaspoon salt, half a teaspoon pepper, half a cup of ketchup, and 2 eggs, and just mix it all. We'll measure it and put it in a muffin tin, bake it for 30 to 35 minutes, and
It'll look
that's
like
what it'll
that?
look like.
When it goes
Yes.
in?
And they're quick and easy. You can have them for a quick meal. Meatloaf sandwiches are wonderful. You can slice them up and eat them on a meatloaf sandwich.
I do love meatloaf
And it's a lighter version. You could use beef, but they recommend that you limit beef to 2 times a week for your health. So this is lean turkey, good for you. So we're going to mix this up real quick, and then we'll start sampling. Do you want to pour everything in for me, Diana? Just everything in no particular order. And I forgot the eggs. We have 2 eggs, so we'll just bake it for the eggs.
Okay.
And then this.
That's a
Salt and pepper. And you don't need a whole lot of salt. It has, the onions and the vegetable, the garlic.
And
Ketchup.
just plop it.
Pop it in.
And we'll have this on our website.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
promise.
Yeah.
We didn't get the last one.
If you want to.
So all of that goes in.
All of that goes in there, and we'll mix it up. Measure a half a cup here. So mix it all in. Measure a half a cup. Just gonna put it in real quick. That's about a 4-ounce serving raw. It'll cook up to about 3 ounces. You pour it in your muffin pan. Cover it with a little ketchup and bake it 30 to 35 minutes. And you can make 6 or you can make 12. It's the same size. This is just a deeper pan. So, ready to try it?
Yeah.
Move this out of the way.
How long did you say you cook it?
30 to 35
30 to
minutes.
35 minutes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
You know what to
All right,
do.
let's see.
That's good. It's interesting how turkey tastes like beef.
Can you tell the vegetables are in there?
No, but
No,
it's
you
very
can't.
good and
You
flavorful.
can't tell that there are any vegetables in.
No.
Other than none.
If you don't want to use the broccoli slaw, you can use zucchini, you can put mushrooms in there. You can really make this your own recipe. I like the broccoli slaw and the taste that it gives it.
I love it.
It's delicious.
It is good, it's very good.
Well, Phyllis, you've done it again. While my mouth is full, guess what, ladies? That completes our show today. We hope that you enjoyed it and that you learned something that inspires and empowers you.
So you can watch our show anytime, anywhere at IMARAwoman.com.
And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Well, until the next time, peace and blessings.